Coming up on today's show.
Look at page, let's say, 253 in the math textbook and do problems 1 through 5. Would they be able to do that?
What other kinds of tools can students use to help them get organized for an exam or a test, or adults for that matter?
What I want you to do is, once you can separate out what you know and what you don't, I want you to put away what you know.
How to get organized for a test, today on Keeping You Organized. Okay, well, it's test time, it's crunch time. You're getting ready to take an exam and then all of a sudden you freeze and freak out because you don't think you know and what you need to know in order to pass. I can relate to that with daughters in school, both college and high school. So I can only think of the expert in getting students organized and getting ready for this, Leslie Josell, Order Out of Chaos. Leslie, how are you today?
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I love being here with you guys.
Well, Leslie, this topic is near and dear to my heart, like I said in the intro, because I have a daughter in college, I have a daughter in high school. The daughter in high school is getting ready for the ACT test.
Yep.
We're wondering, how do we get organized? How do we get prepared? How do we teach them? So we have a lot to cover, I know. So let's dig into it. I know you work with a lot of students there at Order Out of Chaos. What's the first step in just getting ready for exam preparation?
Well, it's funny because, you know, it's a crazy subject because it used to be, I just have to say this, I used to get calls all the time about organization and time management, and it's really gone full circle to parents saying, my kid doesn't know how to study. My kid doesn't know how to prepare for an exam. They just don't know what to do. And so I'm going to challenge you to go back to your child and ask this question to anyone listening, and including you. So if you were to ask your student, if they were given a homework assignment to look at page, let's say 253 in the math textbook and do problems 1 through 5, would they be able to do that? Now, I'm not saying that they understand the math. I'm just saying, does that make sense to them? Do they know exactly what is being asked of them? And every kid would say, yes, that's an easy one. I go to page 253, I do problems 1 through 5. There's no brain power needed.
Right.
But then let's change it, and let's say it's Monday night and your child has a history exam on Friday, and the homework assignment for the night is to continue studying.
Yeah, nice and vague.
Is your child going to do that? Absolutely not. They're just not. They're going to kick that can down the road. So we actually have to start with We have to start with the fact that, like any other muscle, the brain is a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And if your child is used to 2-pound weights, asking them to interpret continue studying is the equivalent of asking them to either lift 10-pound weights or run a mile if you've never run before.
Oh.
And so that's the baseline. You have to remember that asking something like that is so vague. Your kid doesn't have the brain power possibly to be able to figure that out.
Okay,
like
I think I want to make sure I got this clear, because what we're talking about here is overall studying for the course or a specific exam, and how do you know what's in it?
Just for an exam, because usually what would happen if a student gets an assignment, it's specific enough. Finish your lab from the night before. Do 10 of your vocab questions. You know what I mean? Answer the 3 questions on this sheet. It's very specific. Your child will understand what is being asked of them. But if they're being asked to study,
mm-hmm.
It's very, very vague. It's not specific. It's not defined.
Right.
And therefore, the likelihood of it happening, I'm thinking not so much. So what we have to do first, before we do anything, I always say, is you have to define and then you have to assign. Okay, that's like my thing. I always say define and assign. So I know this sounds kind of funny, but the first thing you have to do is figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing. What are you supposed to be studying? And you can't say, oh, I just need to know about Mesopotamia. I'm just going to use that as the example. I tend to use that example all the time.
Or know where it is.
I know. I love saying it. I just think it's a fun word. But you need to drill that down. What is it about Mesopotamia do you need to know? Do you need to know the 7 gods? Do you need to know about their government, their architecture, their culture? But it's much easier and much more defined if you're saying, here are the 3 things you need to know. You need to know who the 7 gods were. You need to know what the culture was and what its effect was on other ancient
Right.
civilizations. And you need to know, how the architecture had an impact. Right then and there, I've taken this vast nothing and I've now made it so that your child has specifics. We've defined what it is they need to study.
Okay.
So that's number 1.
Right.
You
Number
have to
1,
define
define.
it.
Right. Okay, great.
Then here's the piece that I think most kids miss. And I always say this to parents too. Your child needs to figure out, and I'm going to explain how you do it, what they know and what they don't. Because what we see happening is once your child can define what it is they need to learn, need to be working on or studying, they give the same level of time and importance to everything. You got to remember, psychologically, it's always more fun to review what you know.
Right.
Because think about it, right? So what happens? We tend to start at the beginning. We tend to review the same things the same way. We give the same importance and the same amount of time and effort to what we do and what we don't. And there's a psychological happiness about, oh, look at this. This is easy for me. I know this. And a lot of times that filters into what you don't know. So you're not really focusing on what you don't. There's a false sense of, if I know this, then I must know that.
Right. Well, how about the parents? I mean, the parents, are they going to know this, or how do we get this info? I mean, not all curriculum is going to be that clear, is it?
No, well, yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it depends on how old you are. Obviously, if you are an older student in high school or college, is your parents sitting down with you to figure out what you know and what you don't? No, that's up to you, and there's methods to do that. But if you're a younger student, and you're working with, let's say, a parent, to even go through like flashcards, one of the best tools that you can use to figure out what you know and what you don't. Because what's wonderful about a flashcard is a flashcard sits by itself. It's whatever is on that theory or that term or the definition or piece of information is isolated from everything else. So you have to really comprehend it to be able to discuss it. It's not relying on what came before it or what came after it. It's not this false sense of, as you'll say, you're reading a textbook and you're reading it and you think you know it, but what you're really doing is maybe just memorizing it and not really comprehending it because it's kind of masked with everything else. You see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. And I think flashcards, oftentimes we think about that's just memorizing, facts and figures. But so how do you know you have the comprehension, I guess, then? Is there a way you know that?
One of the things that I love to do with my students is I have them take flashcards to a next level. I call them like Leslie's, flashcards on steroids. That's just how I speak. You know that. I have my way.
Right.
And what I have them do, John, is I have them make what I call can-do flashcards. Okay. So you're making 2 sets of flashcards. So let's say you are making, like you said, definitions and terms and stuff like that. But we want to make sure you're not just memorizing. We want to make sure you're comprehending, which is very different. There has to be a level of understanding. So what I do with can-do cards is can-do cards take your material to a deeper dive. And this would probably be for older students. So you're going to make your can-do cards are going to be like evergreen questions. Like, tell me, where else have you seen this material before? Can you give me an example of this in a book you might have read? Can you illustrate this definition or term in a picture? So what you do, it's like a game. You pick up one of, let's say, your information cards, and then you pick up a can-do card. Now you have to do the action that's on the can-do card with what the information was.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like an application, applying what you know from a fact into a situation.
Exactly. Because what you're doing is you're taking that fact, and now what you're saying is, can you manipulate the material to show me that you truly understand it?
Okay.
So can you show to me, graphically? Can you tell me about a story you might know that illustrates this point?
Right.
Can you give me something that happened that's going on in modern time that relates to this? Let's say it's Mesopotamia. Do you see what I'm doing there?
Right.
I'm taking the information, and you now really have to show me that you understand it.
Here's a perfect application. Leanne, our producer, is holding up a card that's saying take a break. So we're going to do that. We're with Leslie Josel, Order Out of Chaos, talking about how to get organized for an exam or a test, and we'll be right back.
Now there's a place just for you. Life can be busy, and you still have to keep it all together. That's why you like to be organized and in control. Introducing MyOrganized.life, a special place where you can get ideas and solutions to organize what's important to you, your important papers, your important decisions, your important life events. We show you the ideas and products to stay organized in your life. See what's new. Stop by and say hello. Visit us at any time at www.myorganized.life. It's just for you. MyOrganized.life by Smead. Find us at www.myorganized.life. MyOrganized.life.
We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about how to get organized for a test, an exam, what you need to know. And before the break, we're with Leslie Josel, OrderOutOfChaos.com, talking about these two kinds of flashcards. We've got the definition and we got what we call the application, or what'd you call them? You called them the...
I call them can-do.
Can-do cards,
can
right.
you do this? Meaning, can you draw a picture, or can you tell me another
Right.
place? So I call them can-do cards.
Awesome. So what other kinds of tools would you, that's a great tool, I think, right there. What other kinds of tools can students use to help them get organized for an exam or a test, or adults for that matter?
Oh, well, adults I'm not so sure, but
Okay.
well, I guess if you're an adult.
Well, like if you're going to take a real estate test or something like that, I think this can universal apply it across all kinds of places.
Okay. So all right. So I love to talk about study guides because that's something that, most kids across the board, whether you're in middle school, high school, even up to college, either get from their teacher or professor, or they create them. So one of my favorite tools, or one of my favorite tips for if you are being given a study guide from your, let's say from your class. So your teacher hands you like a review packet, study guide, whatever you want to call it. Okay, everybody calls it something different. Again, remember, we're really talking now. I think this is so important because I think this is the step that most kids miss. And the step is what you know and what you don't. Because what I tell kids, and I'm going to go back to one of my other tools, is what I want you to do is once you can separate out what you know and what you don't, I want you to put away what you know. So now you're focusing on a smaller amount of information, but now you're forced almost to really apply yourself and spend time really working on the things that you don't. Because again, I'm going to keep saying that we tend to spend the same amount of time, or we keep going over what we do. Right. So here's a fun tool, or a fun way to work it. If your teacher or professor hands you a blank study guide, like questions that you have to fill in, right. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to ask them for another copy, if you can. If not, I want you to make a couple of copies. So here's what happens. You sit down with your study guide, and you're usually doing it in class, teacher is directing you, and you're just writing. Again, you're not understanding. Okay, there's that whole piece. There's a big difference, John, between writing to memorize versus writing to comprehend. Right. Do you fully understand what it is you're being asked? So what I want you to do is you're usually filling this out with the, teacher directed. I want you to put that one aside. Now I want you to take that clean copy. Follow me. And I want you to fill it out by memory. Completely by memory. I don't want you to look at a textbook. I don't want you to look at your notes. I don't want you to even look at the other study guide. Because that right off the bat is going to tell you, you can hear me keep saying this, what you know and what you don't.
Right.
Then I want you to go back and you use the study guide, but here, wait for it, because there's another piece to it. I either want you to take the study guide, your notes, a textbook, and I want you to fill it in again. Because now you're reinforcing what you don't know. You're working on what you don't. But here's where it gets fun. I want you to take the third copy of that study guide that's blank, and I want you to cut it up. I want you to cut it up by questions. And I want you to mix it up. Because one of the things I see when even a student uses a study guide is they memorize in order, or they comprehend in order. And you're not going to be tested that way. So by cutting up the by cutting up the study guide and mixing it all up, you might have a question on Mesopotamia, but then you might have a question on ancient Rome. And then you might have another question on, oh my God, I don't know, pick another ancient, you know what I mean?
Babylon or something like that.
Babylon, exactly. And you might have a question about the gods, and then a question about the architecture, and then a question about the culture, and then a question about the government.
Right.
But what it's forcing you to do is comprehend and understand the material on its own.
Right.
So cutting up it and flipping it up and mixing it up, once again, not only allows you to know what you don't and what you do, but it also provides a wonderful study tool to learn what you don't. Right. So it's a two-pronged process. And that's part of the process of getting organized. You first have to figure out what you know and what you don't. You got to put aside what you do and now focus on what you don't. And this is a great, fun way of doing study guides that make it a little more fun, a little interesting, and a heck of a lot less boring.
Well, I think also you're helping people learn the subject better too, not only for the test, but for further retention. So, okay, wow. Well, we are cranking out here, Leslie. You know what? I think, this is like one of those time tests. We're going to have to stop this episode and bring you back next time if you're available, because I know we have more to cover, don't we?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes, we do. I knew that was the answer I was looking for. But before we go, why don't you let people know how they can get a hold of you and what kinds of products and services you offer at Order Out of Chaos?
Okay. So you can go, we have two different websites. So orderoochaos.com. Name of my company is Order Out of Chaos, but Order Chaos is our website. That's where you can find like our blog and our coaching services and stuff like that. But if you go on products.orderoochaos.com, that's where the action really happens. Ooh. So we offer, everything we do is virtual in our company. You don't have to live near me, which is in New York. We have a global population. We offer classes, online classes. We offer webinars on everything from organization, time management, procrastination, study skills. We offer videos you can purchase that take a deeper dive into these types of subjects, like how to study, how to take notes, even how to use flashcards effectively, and also our coaching services and our products. It's all on the site. One-stop shopping.
Well, this is awesome. I can't wait to come back next time for part 2 of this episode, because I know there's more. We haven't even kind of covered some of these tools, I know, like senses and all kinds of things like that. Yeah. So folks, there you have it. Come back next time for part 2 of how to study for an exam or a test right here on Keeping You Organized.